Hello lovely people and welcome back to this week's new video. I haven't done a sit down video in quite some time, but hello, my name's Noah. I'm a bookish and lifestyle vlogger born and raised and still based in New York City. If that sounds like of any interest to you, I hope that you stick around and subscribe at the end if you so please. Today we are going to be talking about 5-star predictions. I've only had one this year. Yeah, it's April. Last year I had very little as well, the least that I've had. That makes me sad. I think I've become a lot more strict for some reason, and I would like to have a lot of 5-star reads. So I've compiled a list for us to talk about to hopefully get more this year. Now I haven't done this video in years. I think I've only done one in like 2020, 2018 possibly. I looked through that video and I haven't read some of the books, or I did and they weren't 5 stars. We're gonna see if this is gonna come true. I do want to do a vlog for this since a couple of them are on my physical TBR, and one of my overall goals for this year is to really read that down. Really kind of just basing this off of past books that I've read from the authors, like authors that I've enjoyed, recommendations, and just overall vibe. When I was writing out like my notes for this video, I noticed that there was kind of a similar theme for some of them, at least. Like there's a pattern, and hopefully I really know myself as a reader. Let's just get straight into it. The first book that I have is out from the library and it was recommended to me recently. It's also a new release, and it is When I Kill You by B.A. Paris. The Bookstagrammer read by Sophie recommended this. She gave it 4.5 stars, and I was just immediately intrigued by the premise because of the unreliable narrator. We're following Nell, and she is constantly looking over her shoulder. She feels like she is being watched. It's because she has many secrets. 14 years ago, Nell went by the name Elle, and she witnessed a student get into the car, and later that student was found to be murdered. Elle becomes completely obsessed with this case, and she decides that she knows who the killer is and starts to stalk this man, and a lot of problems obviously arise from this. Now Nell is afraid that someone from her past has figured out her new identity and has the stalker now become the stalked. I kind of like that you're always just kept on your toes and you're not really sure of who to believe. It's sus that like Nell and Elle, like why that happened. It really doesn't seem like a police protection kind of situation. Can we really trust our main character? I don't really think that you need to like the main character, because if the plot is messy enough, I will follow along. The next book is Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. This is quite chunky. I am slowly, really slowly making my way through this series. I originally read Throne of Glass during COVID, I think. I went to go buy the box set during COVID. I read Crown of Midnight last year, and usually with fantasy series, it takes me a while to get into them, but first book was 3 stars. Crown of Midnight was 4 stars, so I'm like, okay, there's a pattern. This could possibly be a 5-star read. I have been enjoying the series. Hopefully it'll be 5 stars from here on out. The next one is actually also a book in a series, and it's Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is the 3rd book in the Wild series. I picked up the series years ago for a Smasher Pass, a series that I do where I read booktubers' favorite books. Really enjoyed the first one. I think I gave that one like 4.5. The second book also pretty high. Really enjoyed it. I would preferably like to read the first 2 again just to get back into that world and familiarize myself with the characters. In this book we're following the veterinarian Marie, and she has always been pining after her best friend, but her best friend did not reciprocate those feelings and married somebody else. So she's heartbroken but really wants to get married, find like the love of her life and have children, build a family with this person. Now in comes the love interest Tyler. He's a competitive musher, and I don't really know what that means. The first impression of him is not great, but when they're working together during a sled dog race, she realizes just how good of a person that he is. He's really nice, and they really bond and create this unlikely friendship. But Tyler turns out is in love with somebody else, and Marie knows that this is not the path that she needs to go down. She knows that there's not going to be any happiness, but the heart wants what the heart wants. The next one is a book coming out in a few weeks, and it is Harmless by Miranda Schulman. Thank you so much to Dutton for sending me a copy. 2 years ago, Bee's sister Audrey died, and in their mother's eyes, Audrey was always the golden child. She was really special, whereas Bee was kind of like the different one. She was too intense. Now in her late 20s, Bee is back home in Park Slope, Brooklyn, where I'm from. She wants to start a dog kennel, which has always been her and Audrey's dream, and in doing so, she reaches out to her estranged friends Layla and Tatum. She recruits them to to work at this dog kennel with her as like an ode to her sister's memory. Both Tatum and Layla are at kind of like a crossroads at their life as well. They're not very happy, and they're hoping that working here could kind of bring back some purpose into their life. And now the three of them are sort of navigating a new like friendship because they were estranged, but also their dynamic without Audrey there. This reminds me of Blue Sisters. Even though those are like actual sisters, I'm kind of hoping that's kind of like the similar vibe. They're all grieving and how they will like bond after that and figure out how to move forward with their grief. Not really sure where the title Harmless will come into play, but I think this will be a really good like examination of grief. This also has been on my shelf for quite some time. This is The Push by Ashley Audrain. I think this might be an add-on that I chose from Book of the Month, but it's definitely been on my shelf since 2021 when it like originally came out. So this is a psychological thriller. Blythe is determined to be the mother to her kids that she never really had, but she's having a really difficult time in doing so with her first child, Violet. She is convinced that something is wrong with her daughter, and her husband Frank is trying to convince her otherwise, and because he isn't supporting her, she starts to believe that something is now wrong with her. She's not really sure what to trust. When they have their second child, Sam, everything with him is going really well. She is really bonding with him in a way that she never was able to when Violet was a baby. But then something happens. Life as they know it changes. Blythe is then forced to face the truth. It's said that this book is meant to challenge everything we think we know about motherhood, about what we owe our children, and what it feels like when women are not believed. I think this will be also kind of a la the unreliable narrator route. The next one is actually a new book on my physical TBR. It is my April Book of the Month pick. And it's Molka by Monica Kim. I really like these new centennial bookmarks that they're coming out with. There's a little placard in here. Molka is the Korean term for spy cameras that are secretly and illegally installed. Dahye is dating Hyuk-jun, who is the heir to a multi-million-dollar fortune. The two are kind of scandalously caught on a Molka, and when that video is released to the public, it creates quite a stir. Oh my god, this one bang. It creates quite a stir, and Hyuk-jun leaves the country and leaves Dahye to kind of deal with the aftermath alone. She kind of strikes up this friendship with an IT tech at work, Junyoung, but turns out that Junyoung has his own Molka and has been spying on the women at work. I think this is supposed to be sort of like a revenge story, and I don't want to reveal too much. Now, I read Monica Kim's debut, The Eyes Are the Best Part, last year, and I gave that 5 stars. Okay, I believe in women's wrongs. We support. So I'm hoping that this is kind of that same vibe of women's revenge, getting justice on their own. So I'm hoping it's a really similar vibe. But I think this is coming out at the end of the month as well. So super shout out to Book of the Month so that I could get this early. And now Back to You by B.K. Borison, which is the second book in the Heartstrings series. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy, but this one is like When Harry Met Sally, which I've never seen. Sorry, somebody tell me if it's worth watching. But we are following a character, Jackson, who it was in the first book, First Time Caller, which I really enjoyed. I gave that 4.5 stars. Jackson is the meteorologist working at the radio station. He also like sometimes has these run-ins with fellow meteorologist Delilah, and they are a little bit competitive, but there is a huge snowstorm of the century that's coming, and the two of them are partnering up to report on the snowstorm. Now, Jackson and Delilah are very different types of reporters. Jackson prefers to be in his little radio booth, whereas Delilah really likes the excitement and the adventure of being out in the field, and so they really have to kind of work together to figure out their dynamic and their balance. While it is very frustrating at first, a friendship blossoms and they like spending time together, and that's how the romance will begin. In First Time Caller, I really enjoyed like just the easy dynamic of seeing them naturally become friends, so I'm hoping that there will be something similar. I was really like giggling and kicking my little feet, so I'm hoping that maybe this one will be a step further and I will like this one as well. Moving on, the next book is The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This book is another intense story taking place in 1974 Alaska. Earned is a POW who recently came back from the Vietnam War and decides to completely uproot his family to move to Alaska and live off the grid. His 13-year-old daughter Lenny is hoping for a better future and just like a better relationship, happier relationship with her parents. His wife Cora will do anything for her husband. But winter comes and they are very isolated. Their community is very like tight-knit and very, very independent. So now that it's winter, it's dark, it's freezing, it's Alaska. So Ernst's mental state, already fragile, is really starting to deteriorate, and it's putting a really big strain on the family. They come to realize that no one but themselves will save them. I really like Kristen Hanna's writing and the relationships that she creates. I recently read The Four Winds, which was my one and only 5-star read of the year. I like thoroughly enjoyed like following the characters and just learning about them, seeing their growth, and I'm hoping for that in this as well. The only other book that I've read by her is actually The Nightingale, which I think I gave like 4 stars when I read it a couple years ago. She just writes characters and strong women really, really brilliantly, and I'm hoping that will come through in The Great Alone as well. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir is the next one. I read The Martian by Andy Weir and gave that an easy 5 stars when I read it in 2018. Ryland is the only survivor on this sort of like last chance mission, and if he fails, apparently the Earth itself will perish. So it's very imperative that he completes the mission, except that when Ryland wakes up, he has no recollection of what he's doing there, why he's there, and why 2 of his crewmates are dead. So he has to kind of piece together the scientific mystery of what he's doing there, but also what the mission is and how he can solve it. When I read The Martian, what I really enjoyed was that it wasn't completely spitting out scientific facts out to you, but it wasn't also like super dumbing it down to you where you feel like you're being condescended constantly, and I enjoyed that. So I'm hoping to learn a little bit more, especially because sci-fi is not something that I read like ever. Holds list at the library is obviously very, very long. This book has been on my TBR for a long, long time, and I should have just taken the opportunity before it blew up to read it, but it'll get here when it gets here. The next book is actually one that hasn't come out yet, and it's Hot Girl Murder Club by Ashley Winstead. I really love Ashley Winstead. She's low-key like an auto-read author for me because I've rated her books all quite high. The first book that I ever read by her was definitely a 5-star read, and I really enjoy her romance books as well. So 10 years ago, aspiring singer-actress Sloane lost her sister Georgia, and it was sort of this mysterious death. But recently, a slew of murders make the headlines, and they are all pointing the finger at Sloane, accusing her of being the murderer, and she has to clear her name. I think there's like a young detective that is assigned to the case that is helping her, or I guess helping her, and it's supposed to be sort of that story, but I know that's a really bad synopsis, but also it's like a mystery thriller, so I don't want to know too much going into it, and I just really like Ashley Winstead. I do tend to prefer her thrillers more than the romance, I think. The next one is the last one that I have from my physical TBR, and it is Clockwork Prince. This is the second book in the Infernal Devices. This is also a series that I started a really long time ago and just never really continued, even though I went out to go buy this, as well as the Mortal Instruments series, the first one. At least I haven't really bought all of them. I gave Clockwork Angel, the first book, 5 stars, which is very rare because with fantasy books, especially ones that are going to be a series, it takes me a while to get into the world. It's a huge world to come to understand, and the first book's usually like 3 stars, but surprisingly for Clockwork Angel, I gave it 5 stars. So I'm hoping that like that will continue. I of course need to read Clockwork Angel again because I definitely don't remember anything, and hopefully the rating will still stand 2 years later because I read it in 2024, which is crazy that I like don't really remember anything. I would like to get into this whole world. There is a lot, so I need to look up like what order I need to be reading them in because this was definitely not a series that I was reading in middle school with everybody else. Martyr by Kavin Akbar is next. Cyrus is an orphan son of Iranian immigrants. His mother died in a terrible plane accident, and his father worked at a chicken farm in the Midwest. And now Cyrus is a drunk, an addict, and a poet who starts this obsession around martyrs. I feel like this book is quite literary, which surprisingly I've been enjoying a lot more in the last couple of years. Literary was never something that I would read a lot of, but I think as I've gotten older, I'm starting to understand the enjoyment of it. And I know that this was a really, really popular read last year. One of my good friends gave it 5 stars and said it was like the best book that she's she's ever read. Next, I have 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This one has been on my TBR since 2020. Stephen King is an author that I enjoy reading, though I haven't read anything of him in like the last couple of years. My all-time favorite of his is definitely Misery. I gave it 5 stars as well. I really enjoyed like Green Mile. I know that this is kind of like a lot of genres mixed into one. Man, Jake, has the ability to travel back into time and change the course of history. So he goes back to November 22nd, 1963 to prevent the assassination of JFK, and everything kind of, I guess, becomes a ripple effect. Now, this is not only sci-fi because of the time travel, but it's also very historical because he's going back in time. There's a little bit of fantasy and horror, and even a touch of romance from what I understand. The book is really long though, which I think makes it quite intimidating, but I am ahead on my Goodreads goal right now, so maybe it's a good time to start it. My sister has read this book, really enjoyed it, and also watched the show and enjoyed it. And the reason why I even remembered this, even though I was going through like my Goodreads list to see what I had available to add to this list, I saw that Allie read it recently in a vlog, and she also gave it like 6 out of 5 stars. I know that he's really good at world building. A little bit mixed thoughts about watching the show now because of James Franco, but somebody tell me if it's worth watching. I have a lot of like series on this, but this one is the first book in a series, and it's The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. I added this to my TBR in 2019, and I have been seeing her talk a lot about it because I follow her on Instagram about the other books in the series, and I'm like, wait, I should read her books because I absolutely love her writing. I think she's so funny, and the romance is really, really good. So this is the first book in the Midnight Heat. Cherry is 30, she's flirty, but she's completely over men, but she has needs. And she sees this hot stranger and decides that he's going to be the perfect one-night stand. Turns out the one-night stand is the royal prince who is trying to like piece his image back together, and she has no idea, but the paparazzi catch them, and obviously this is a huge scandal, and Cherry is kind of thrown into this fake engagement scheme that both her and the king do not like. But obviously we're entering like a fake dating kind of trope here, and I think the premise of this is so funny. I think that Talia Hibbert will absolutely execute it perfectly. Next up, we have They Never Learned by Elaine Fargo. This is a psychological thriller I added to my TBR in 2022, and at the time I had never read anything by her. I read The Favorites by her, the one and only book that I've read by her, not that I've read many, and I gave that an easy 5 stars. I think it was my first one of last year. Scarlett is an English professor. Every year, she searches for the worst man at the university and plots their demise. I read that first line and I was like, sold. Want to read. Add to TBR. I think that's so funny because obviously we support women's wrongs. And this year she's apparently preparing for like the biggest one yet, except that the school is unfortunately starting to catch on to the multiple like accidents and dead bodies at the school, and an investigation begins. Scarlett can't have this, so she interjects herself into the investigation. I don't know if that's the right word. She is working closely with the woman who's in charge, Dr. Mira Pierce. On the other hand, we are following a student, Carly. It's her freshman year, and she just really wants to do really well, put her head down, and kind of just get through the work. And her roommate, Allison, is the complete opposite. She's so fun, easygoing, like friends with everybody, life of the party, and they really bond and create a friendship, which is great. Okay, your freshman roommate, that's the one, right? Until Allison is sexually assaulted at a party. Carly is now determined to make the attacker pay. So we have these 2 women who are plotting this demise. Maybe they work together, but I really liked that idea of like these 2 women out for revenge, and maybe they cross paths. That could be really interesting. Well, they have to, right? But I think that'd be really funny if they're like, oh yeah, I'm also plotting his demise. Okay. The last book that I have on this list is Missing Sister by Jocelyn Jackson. This is coming out soon, or is coming out this year. Penny and Nix are twins, another pattern, and they are born 3 minutes apart, and they do everything together, are as close as can be. But Nix dies in a tragic accident, and she leaves behind this cryptic voicemail. It leaves Penny like completely guilt-ridden, and all she wants is like justice for her sister. Flash forward 5 years, Penny is now working as a rookie cop. At her first murder scene, she sees that the victim is Danny, someone that she blamed for Nix's death, one of 3 guys. The killer somehow gets away, and Penny is left trying to find this killer and trying to figure out why somebody else is avenging Nix's death. I like immediately added that when I was going through 2026 releases. And I'm really hoping for the best because there are a lot of themes, like I mentioned before, of what I enjoy. Clearly I enjoy sister bonds, okay? Like I have an older sister myself, and I think stories like that just like a bond with your sibling. People won't understand that. I seem to enjoy grief, even though a lot of them are like sister death. That doesn't mean anything. I lost my father, and I really like to read into how like grief is written, and I know how it is different for everybody, but like whether or not I can relate to this and just how people experience it, how I can relate to it. And also women's wrongs, women's revenge stories. I'm hoping for the best, y'all. So I do want this to be a vlog. We can check back in to see which ones might actually be 5 stars. It'd be crazy if I was like back to back 5 star, 5 star, 5 star, because I kind of would like to have more than last year. I'm saying 6 because 2 of them were rereads, so I've only had 1 so far, and it's April. It's not looking too good. So I'm hoping that with this list, I'm setting myself up for success. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. Let me know if you've read any of these and what your reviews were. If you have any 5-star predictions, what yours are, especially for new releases in 2026. And I will see you all next time. Hopefully I will have this vlog out soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!